Trudy here, and I just wanted to record a brief tutorial on design tips. So in this particular module, I'm just going to do a really brief overview of some of the terms to do with designing, but I would really love to encourage you to do your own research because, as I said, I'm really just going to skim over the surface, but just give you a few little design tips that I've managed to gather over the last 30 years of doing some design, and also having two sons who are in the design business in my ear. So I just wanted to share with you a little bit about grid theory and I guess from my perspective as a background in behavioural psychology, it seems to fit the way that people's minds work and the way that eyes are drawn to certain parts of a particular image, a photo or a design. But this gentleman here called P.A. Mondrian, he founded in the Dutch art movement a style called de stijl, which translates to the style. And many art historians credit this Dutch painter as the father of graphic design for his sophisticated use of grids. So what he did is he encouraged artists and architects to utilise abstract art by focusing on sort of simple lines and blocks and painting in black or white or primary colours only. Now, some of you may look at this particular image and think, oh, there's been a lot of clothing that has been designed in this particular style as well. So he certainly has influenced many people when he first started this particular movement in the 1900s. So in this module, I just want to touch briefly on the term of the rule of thirds. So one of my sons has a degree in 3D modelling, and he used to always go on about it when he saw me designing something in Photoshop. He'd say, "Mum, remember the rule of thirds, the rule of thirds." And one day I sort of had an aha moment when he showed me this concept, because I'm sort of naturally designing this way most times anyway, not all the times. So the rule of thirds is really just a way that the eye is drawn to a particular way. It's a way that your eyes process visual images, sort of like designs, films, paintings, photographs, whatever it might be. So the rule of thirds is one of the main rules in art and photographic composition, and it stems from the theory that the human eye naturally gravitates to intersection points that occur when an image is split into thirds. So I'm going to show you a couple of images in a moment so that you can have a visual comprehension of what the rule of thirds looks like. So this is just a quick image of how people break down, say for instance, like a big, huge poster design. They've actually got specific words and specific layouts, but you've got 6 across and then 9 or so down. But I'll show you something that's even easier to look at. So you can see this photo here. You can see that there's 3 boxes across and 3 down. So what you would do is, if you were designing a particular, say for instance, a particular social media post or a quote or something, you would try and attempt to put certain elements in some of these boxes and try and keep it uniform in one way. And so basically, instead of, say for instance, putting some words, as I'll just show you across here, instead of putting some words across the middle here, instead of putting the words there, what we'd attempt to do is, just to make it more aesthetically pleasing, we would put the words somewhere within the rule of thirds. So we don't try and cross over. We also, in a moment, I'll speak about putting images or words over images. It's just the brain really doesn't like to view it in that way. It's not aesthetically pleasing to it. So that just gives you a little bit of an idea on what the rule of thirds looks like visually. Let's have a little look. And a lot of people use this for photographic composition and things. So we're not going to talk about that. But again, if you were to view this particular bottle, if you were taking a photo of this bottle, rather than having the image just in the center, you can see it's actually been put across to the right, or you could do it to the left. So, but you still here can see the rule of thirds. Okay, so I want you just to keep this rule of thirds in mind when you're designing your particular images or concepts, because it really does aesthetically improve your particular image. So I want to keep this in mind, but feel free to go do your own research on this topic if you want to delve a little bit more into it. So the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to also just show you a little bit about another concept of how to keep all your words and images in alignment with any corner or edges, because as I said before, much of these design concepts are based on the human eye's natural gravitation process. However, scientific research also has shown that using certain specific formalized layouts is much more successful in attracting the human eye than simple randomly based image text combinations. So let's just have a little play around with some grids, and also with some using just some freehand. So we'll start off here with just freehand. So as I said before, we're just going to play around just with some freehand here. I'm just going to upload something from my existing uploads, but you can use things that you can either download from Canva or upload from your library itself. So this is the rule of thirds I'm using here. I'm actually specifically designing this with the rule of thirds in mind. So I'm going to place these particular images in a way where I'm just using the three images. Now I want you just to notice things. You have a little look on the screen here. Can you notice that when I'm moving things around, Canva actually already has the grids in the rule of thirds on here? Again, it's a design element, and Canva is a fantastic tool for design. So you can see when you move things around that the actual grids are there anyway, but you only see them often when you actually are moving things around. So for now, again, I'm just going to keep this tutorial very quick. So I've got two photos there, and I'm now just going to upload that one there. Okay. Because this has already got a quote on it, I'm keeping it quite simple. So again, it's very busy, and I'm not saying this is not for aesthetic purposes. This is just to how to show you how you could use three particular elements, you creating your own third rule of thirds rule on your own. But there is a really simple and quick way. Remember, the things that I'm showing in these tutorials are not to be perfect, are really just to show you some techniques that you can use. So another way that you can do this is to actually use an existing grid. So there's a grid here. I'll just delete it because I'll show you how to go and access one yourself. So you go to elements over here in the left hand side. There are elements, and then there are grids here. So you press see all, and you'll notice here that Canva has an enormous amount of grid styles already set up for you. So what I'll do is I might just choose one. So you click that, so it's already automatically goes into. So this is basically a 3-part grid. You can all go and look at all sorts of different ones there. And what you can do is you can just upload your images into these particular grids. Again, remember, just by dragging and dropping, and I might put a cushion in there, and I might put it there. So again, that's a very quick way to create a particular style using that rule of thirds style. But one of the things I want you to make sure that you do is try and maintain similar colorings. If you've watched the module on color psychology, you'll be able to note that. And the other thing is if you can, try not to overlay words on top of something that already has words in the background. For instance, if you want to do that, you're better off adjusting the filter and blurring the image a bit in the background if you really want to put something over the top. Or the other suggestion is to actually do some block some block colours. So in this particular case, I just don't want to spend too much time on anything else other than talking a little bit just through these particular rule of thirds and making sure that when you add words, attempt to keep it in line with everything that you have on the page. So for instance, let's just colour this particular block here white, and I'm just going to go and find an element, and I'm just going to put in here quote. So I'm just going to find a quote that I want to use. This is a really good one. Okay, be kind. I'm just going to delete this one for now as well and just make that white because I just want to show you something. So what I'd like you to consider doing is, I'm just going to, again, remember this is not for aesthetic purposes. It's just to show you how to keep things in line. I want you to notice when you're actually, notice a little, some of the red grid lines that come up as I move things around. If you can, try and keep things squared. So if you're going to put an image on the right here, let's just put another image here just so I can show you a little bit easier. Okay. So I'm going to drag, just drag that into there. Okay, so if you can, try and square things up. Now, it's not going to happen every single time you do something, but if I'm going to put this be kind quote somewhere, I'm not going to just randomly, I'm going to try and keep everything sort of symmetrical if I can, or in line with certain corners. So if I wanted to, I could either line it up there at the top, you can see there's a little red line there, or I could line it up down here at the bottom, see there's a little red line there, and just try and keep everything uniform in some way. Obviously, if you want to have it in the center here, that's fine, but then when you add your name, make sure that your name stays, basically in a way that everything is even in some way. And if you want to add an element, say a line or something, then make sure that that line is in line with everything that you do. It's either going to be directly underneath it, or it's going to be small and centered. Don't have things in random places. Try and think about what it would look like, what it looks like aesthetically. And the reality is, the more you practice some of these design techniques, the better it is, because it is something to get used to. But again, notice when you align things. See how this is aligned. There's a little red line that comes up when I try and align it to a specific spot. Now, the other thing to do is you can actually align things by the position spot up here in the right position, and you can align it to the bottom of the page, the middle of the page, the top of the page, or the center of the page. So whenever I'm doing anything that is doing, like the center of anything, I will press the position and center it. I will then put here, and rather than guess, I'll actually go to position and I'll center it. My name, I'll press my name and I'll press position and I'll center it. This little thing here, I will position it and center it. So, and then I go back and if you really want to center them all at the same time, you notice here I'm right clicking everything and I'm putting everything together, and I can center everything at the same time. So again, this is just a little something to keep in mind. These are some very, very basic design tips, but I hope that you enjoy them. And remember that, everything that you're learning, you don't need to learn in one module or one day or 1 week. I've been doing design things for 30 years, but I've spent the last 6 months or so in Canva really spending a lot of time playing around and designing my own workshops, my website assets, and all my social media posts. I've spent a lot of time creating and making. So it will get better, it will get easier, but you're all doing such a great job. So be sure that you just enjoy the process as well and take some of these simple design tips on board, and also go and do a little bit of research for yourself. Much love from me to you, and I look forward to chatting again to you more in another module. Bye for now.